someday in 30 years from now, 40 years from now, 50 years from now, some of these young people are going to say, I remember Donald Trump, he did a good job. He set us on his way. He told us, he gave us a path.
President Trump, well, he likes to describe himself as a champion of young voters, and he credits a wave of Republican podcasters, social media influencers for the support that grew for him in the 2024 election. One of those influencers, C.J. Pearson, he joins me now here at the table. C.J. is also a GOP Youth Advisory Council co-chair. It's great to meet you.
Thank you for having me.
Tell me about your journey in politics. How did you become a Trump supporter and advocate?
Well, I got started in politics when I was just 12 years old, making YouTube videos in my parents' home, who are lifelong Democrats. So it's kind of an ironic journey to the Republican Party. But in supporting President Trump, I was attracted to his strength. This is a man who leads from behind and not from, who leads from the front and not from behind. And it's something that I respect a lot. When it comes to our future in this country, I trust him. I believe in him. I'm confident in him. And so do many of my peers. That's why we see in this new CBS News poll, we see a 10-point plus favorability rating among young people, even bigger than his favorability rating among baby boomers, which I think is an incredible testament to the fact that we believe and are confident in President Trump's vision for this country and this new golden age that he's ushered in.
Describe for me the conversation in your group of friends, your cohort of people who look at Trump and see something different than they saw before in politics.
I think what we're seeing now from young people is this, it's no longer a faux pas to support President Trump. It's no longer a faux pas to be MAGA. It's actually cool to do so. When I look at my peers,
when did it start to become cool?
I think this election cycle, with the president embracing influencers, embracing celebrities, you have folks like Kodak Black, Waka Flocka, all these big rappers, cultural figures, sensations coming out and saying, I support President Trump. I believe in his vision for America. I believe his economic agenda. It's no longer, cancel culture is dead, and he wrote the obituary for it.
How much of this is driven by being known by your enemies? President Trump is known by his enemies. Yeah. He talks about that all the time. Is that a driving force for you and your friends?
You know, I think for me, at the end of the day, you know a lot about a person based on their enemies. And I think a lot of his enemies are people that are enemies of our generation. Under President Biden, inflation was a record high. College affordability was nowhere to be found. Access to home buying was something not even being talked about. Under President Trump, we see an economy that is not just in recovery, but an economy that is humming and booming.
That was in the first term, in the first term.
In the first term, and I think we're going to see it again here. We've had a president who right out the gate has had one of the most successful 3 weeks that we've ever seen in American history. We're excited about what's to come, and I'm rooting for him.
When you encounter those in your peer group who are not for Trump, who are decidedly against the president, how do those conversations go? You
know, I think they're respectful and they're cordial, and I think that a lot more people are coming over to him. And honestly, I don't have those conversations all too often these days. And I think it's in large part because of the fact the president's track record speaks for himself. Under President Biden, we understand those two worlds. Under President Biden, we didn't have hope. We felt destitution. We didn't have the optimism that we're experiencing right now. But right now, in just a few short days, we have seen that all turn around, and we're super excited about what's to come.
And how much of the kind of things that President Trump did during the campaign that struck maybe people of my generation as kind of odd, the sneakers, the gold sneakers,
the
McDonald's, the getting on the trash truck. Look, some of us looked at that and might have said to themselves, either that looks like old-style politics or he's trying to get to something, but he's not quite there. How did that land in your world?
Well, President Trump is in a league of his own, and I think he knew that what he had to do to win this election was to reach America's young people where they are, and that's exactly what he did. It's why he
How does McDonald's reach them where they are?
He became a meme, and he went viral. So he didn't have to go through the traditional media to reach them. He went through podcasters. He went through influencers, and that won him the day. And unlike Kamala Harris, he didn't sit down with these manufactured conversations about political issues that didn't really matter to people. He sat down and was his authentic self. He sat down with Theo Vaughn and Joe Rogan and just really, you know, shot it with them. And it was so incredible to see. And I think that's what we need to see more of. More people want authenticity from their politicians, not manufactured ones.
What to you is the core of authenticity? Is it to say things that make people upset, or to be yourself the same way all the time, every time?
I think it's to say what you mean and do what you say. That's exactly what President Trump has done. Promises made and promises kept, I think, define the entire first beginning of this administration.
And is there any other politician in Republican ranks that comes close in your mind?
Vivek Ramaswamy, I think, is killing it. I think Vivek.
But he's not a politician right now.
Well, I think he will be soon. I think looking like he's going to be running for governor. But I think he also helped revolutionize this new way of reaching young people, going to where they are, using alternative media, not just talking to your typical cable news hosts and whatnot, but actually reaching people where they are increasingly, which is on social media.
Very quickly, RFK Jr., does he fit into that category?
Make America healthy again, baby.
CJ Pearson, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much.